Hello, and welcome to our series on self marriage. I am here today with Logan Griffin, who's going to share with us about his self marriage. I'm so glad to have you, Logan. Thanks for being with us.
Yeah, so grateful to be here with you. Thank you.
Yeah. And, when I was 19 years old, I probably knew nothing about self love. I'm not even sure I'd heard the term. And yet, when you were 19 years old, you married yourself. How in the world did you get that idea at such a young age?
Yeah, so I basically had a midlife crisis when I was 15, 16 years old. I um I was a kind of an old soul and kind of hit the ground running. And all my life, I knew that there was something deeper, a deeper purpose to my life than was being directly revealed to me through the current societal model. And I had great parents, and they uh, they actually separated when I was 5 years old, and they did their best. At the same time, that was a rift in my life as well, and there was just a lot of suffering. I was very, very sensitive at the age of 15, and my parents did the best they could to try to support me in that time, and brought me to an initially to a marriage family therapist who happened to be a deep meditator, and spiritually oriented. And so as soon as I met this person, I was turned on to the path of yoga and meditation, and started practicing daily, and it became my personal passion at that time in my life at 15 through 16 years old. And I've been meditating every day of my life since, and my personal passion just naturally evolved into my profession. And so by the time I was 19 years old, I was very deep on the spiritual path, and that's a big part of what inspired me to marry myself, is to understand that everything that I was seeking outside of myself, or I was conditioned to seek outside of myself, I was actually finding within, from these yogic disciplines and practices and meditation, and through kindling the flame of my own heart and soul and its wisdom and intuition. So it
Hmm.
came to me naturally. I didn't know anything about it. It was just through conversations with friends around the time, like I love myself, marrying myself. It just started to kind of click and make sense. Like, wow. And that becomes a foundation for being able to love in a different way in the relationships in my life.
Hmm. Say more about what self marriage meant to you at that time.
Yeah, wow. At that time, it was revelation. It was revolution, revelation. It was massively transforming to shift out, and I was already had an inclination toward that, to be as self-sufficient and self-reliant as I could. Not to that what I still wasn't relational and interfacing, as just like I'm whole and complete within myself. I'm not missing my other half, and all these kind of languages within our culture. And I was, I guess, just kind of intuitively, internally wired a little bit differently to be kind of seeing the limitation of looking for anything outside of myself as a foundation, rather than, and not just in love or relationship or marriage, just in life. Like, rather than doing all these things and then I'm going to be happy and whole and fulfilled, I'm going to feel happy, whole, and fulfilled now as a foundation for where I operate in my life from there. So it was a major paradigm shift out of this kind of dualistic dynamic into more of a holistic, embodied, um, self-sourcing, self-empowered paradigm of self-love, and kind of seeing that the one that I was looking for, or was really, in the mirror every morning.
Hmm. What sort of planning went into your wedding?
It was very spontaneous and ad hoc. It wasn't a big ceremony or any of that. I know some people have actually done it, like as part of a community, and kind of do the whole thing and have a ceremony. It was very small. I had two of my best friends on a beach. I was living on the Northern California coast at the time, and timed it for my birthday. So just kind of being witnessed, and me declaring that I love myself unconditionally. I am whole and complete within myself. I don't even exactly remember what was said at the time. It was more of just a spontaneous affirmation of that choice to marry myself, and to
Hmm.
find that wholeness and completion within myself as a foundation for my life.
So you really didn't write any vows ahead of time. You just felt for what was true in the moment and spoke it aloud and were witnessed.
Yes.
Love that. Love that, especially for anyone that is feeling a little daunted by vows, you don't necessarily have to write them before that moment. You can just say what's true for you once you are with yourself in whatever place you've chosen for your self marriage to be.
Totally.
I was really excited by what you shared in our initial conversation that you didn't just marry yourself once, you actually married yourself every day for that entire year, which again is like a level of wisdom beyond most 19-year-olds I've ever met. Why did you decide to go that route?
Yeah, it was just again like an intuitive revelation ever since I started meditating and really honoring myself in the deepest way. And it's been a profound journey of internal healing and transformation and facing the deepest fears and pain inside of me and transmuting them through this kind of internal alchemical process of self-actualization and being very deep into the wisdom teachings that are available in the world. And it just became my passion, as I mentioned. And I was studying psychology and philosophy in college as well. And so it was all kind of happening at the same time. And I was just kind of lit and on fire. And in that heart opening and a kind of activated place, there's just this intuitive revelation that kind of drops in. It's like, oh, if I do this every day, as just this kind of renewing that intention, that choice to love myself unconditionally and to source within myself and to, in a way, marry my own soul. And this is also funny because I used to listen to these love songs on the radio and something didn't quite feel right about them because it's like, I can't live without you. And it's almost like this limited paradigm. It's like, oh, if I switch it with when they're saying the you, it's not a human body, it's the soul and God. Oh, I can totally jive to this. This is great. Yes, I can't live without you. And you're my everything. And like, yes, this big vertical full body, yes. And so there's this kind of alchemical shift that happened within that. And I just intuitively realized that if I did that every single day, then every day would be my anniversary and every day would be a reminder of this choice for the rest of my life. And I did it on my birthday. So then it's also, I was playing at the time like, well, what is today and why is today the most amazing, incredible day ever? Well, every day I'm reborn. Every day is new. Every day is a new day. And this reset every moment, every day, kind of flower fresh. And then every day is my birthday. Every day is my anniversary. And every day is there's something to celebrate and
So
to
what
come
does it
back to that truth.
yeah, what does it look like to marry yourself every day? Did you say the exact same things you said on the beach? Did you just feel into it and say whatever you felt like saying that day?
Yeah. So for me in my life, there's kind of this intuitive flow of um, repetition has value and structure. That said, the deepest level of this vow to myself is really actually ineffable. As I was sharing with you a little bit previously, there's this saying that there's the external level of a teaching and the internal level, and then the so-called secret level. And so an external would be kind of the ceremony, and it's kind of inconvenient to do that every day. And then even the internal level of an affirmation, or this is what I'm choosing. I choose to love myself first and foremost as the foundation for my capacity to love other people. That my ability to forgive others is directly reflective of my capacity to forgive myself and be grateful, etc. That virtue is, in my experience, sourced from an infinite source within me, spirit, soul. And so the secret level isn't a secret in the sense that, hush, hush, it's not okay to talk about it, or you can't talk about it. It's because it literally can't be said. It's an internal knowing in the heart of hearts that is known in the silence and stillness of one's own heart and soul and knowing. So that was part of it every day in my daily practice that was happening in my meditation. Again, choosing to love myself and to be deeply committed to myself no matter what happens in my life, that whatever comes and goes, high times and low times, and like those classic marriage vows, that I'm going to be there for me in a way that nobody else really can. And that's what's also interesting. I used to contemplate around that time and throughout my life that I'm the only one who can really love me the way that I most deeply need to be loved,
Hmm.
because I'm the only one who's with me every moment, all the time anyway. So, even if I think I need someone, they're not always available. And that's not their fault or limitation. And this also comes to something that happened simultaneously at the exact same time in my life. I was doing a lot of inner healing work around my childhood, around my parents, and there was a direct relationship between this internal empowerment of marrying myself and freeing myself from identifying with my parents. that I found psychologically within myself that, and I was studying psychology at the time as well, and really getting into the deep understanding of just how profoundly influenced we are by our father and our mother. And I deeply love my parents and always will. And I started to realize, like, whoa, my mom's not actually my true real mother. And my father's not actually my true real father. And some people might go, what do you mean by that? Well, I found out for myself experientially that the earth is actually my mother, and that the sun and the cosmos is actually my father. And they were my father and mother before my earthly parents were, who brought me into incarnation, in this life. And so there was this profound revelation of being profoundly supported by Mother Earth, that she's constantly holding me, every bite of food she's feeding me, every breath, my whole life, and the shining light of spirit and the sun inspiring me and guiding me to grow into greater excellence, that I just deepened this vertical relationship with life as myself and as part of this kind of internal trinity of my divine father, my divine mother, and experiencing myself as the bridge between the two, or the link between the two, as a divine child. And so in that revelation, it also then kind of precipitated to kind of marry myself and marry those principles within myself as a transformation psychologically and interrelationally in the world. And it totally transformed my life at the time. It was revolutionary, as I was saying.
I imagine that there's so much more allowing that can happen from that space when you're rooted in something that's larger than any one-on-one relationship, that's larger than any outside connection. When, like, the way that you see yourself is as held by this thing that's so much bigger. And I think this is part of why spirituality, God, religion is so grounding for many people, is for that same reason. And I think what I'm getting is that for you, self-marriage, along with all this other spiritual work that you did, was the way of, like, creating this, like, beautiful nest for yourself.
Yeah, well said. And it brought devotion to my life. It brought purpose to my life. It recontextualized my life as a continuous, I call it the continuous miraculous. Every day is truly amazing. And if we're present to look for it, sometimes the ego and mind is like, well, I want to see a miracle before I believe it. When in truth, the miracle is really everything, everywhere, all the time. And I found that when I bring that devotion to the ultimate relationship, like capital R relationship with life itself, that naturally then that devotion informed every other dimension of that relationship, as seeing that myself as one with life, and how I treat myself and how I treat life and how I treat other beings is all intimately related. And so why not pull out all the stops and recontextualize it in a way that allows me to bring that supreme devotion to every dimension of my life experience.
15 years after marrying yourself the first time, or I guess 16 years, what does self-marriage mean to you now?
Yeah, it's become a permanent part of me. In so many ways, it's almost I forget about it. And because it's had such a foundational transformation in my life and a change of trajectory in my life, that it's interesting, because over the years then I met other people who've done the same. And it's kind of, so for example, when you reached out to me for this, I don't really talk about this publicly much or post it much. And I got this, like, I was so excited to talk about it because it's so near and dear to my heart. And it's not always something that I, discuss. And so yeah, it's only grown and expanded and deepened. And it's constantly unfolding, because it's that progressive process of continuous growth and evolution that life is. It's definitely deepened over the years. And I've had very powerful relationships in my life that this process of self-sourcing and self-empowering and self-loving and self-marriage has informed, and then having that reflection and that contrast, and that in many ways I've observed that both in my work with people and with clients, as well as in relationships in my life, friends and girlfriends over the years, and even my current partner, so many of our limiting beliefs, so many of our fears, so many of our limitations that cause suffering and create limitations in our life can be tracked to some version of looking outside of ourselves to heal something within ourselves. And I'm not saying that we can't receive support and guidance and mentorship, and there isn't great value in friendship and all forms of interactive relationship outside of ourselves. That said, my experience is that there are certain patterns that are so deeply internal within us that no amount of an external dynamic in and of itself will be able to resolve these deeply internal issues. And that so many of the healing modalities and spiritual teachings in the world point us back into ourselves and can guide us and support us in that process. That said, it's ultimately a self transformation, a change of our mind, a change of our beliefs, a change of our feelings, a facing of our fear and pain that only we can do because we have free will. We have that sovereign, God-given free will process. And we live in a culture too that's in many ways designed to keep our attention outside of ourselves. And it can even be a social taboo. And we can even be afraid of what we might see or find or feel when we really absorb into ourselves, which is partly why learning to sit still and ground ourselves in our breath and our body and turn our attention inward is so profoundly transformational.
If we stick to this idea of philosophy, I feel like every time I talk to you, we kind of get into these esoteric philosophical conversations, which is great. I love it. But if we continue along this route, you talked about hieros gamos, which I'm probably pronouncing incorrectly. It's the Greek term for sacred marriage.
Mhm.
And I'd love for you to share with our viewers more about this because I think it connects so poignantly to self-marriage.
Yeah, well, this is a deep topic. And at that time in my life, I didn't really know about this. Over the years, I've gone deeper and deeper in my study of different traditions or just heard about different things. And all these kind of puzzle pieces keep coming in and clicking together. And the Greeks had a term for this process of called hieros gamos. And when you look into the alchemical and hermetic symbols and teachings in the world and in astrology and different esoteric traditions, there's a whole plethora of symbolism about this constant interface between polarity. Even the yin yang symbol that's so well known in the world. That within the light or the white you have the dark, and within the dark you have that they're balanced, that it takes both male and female energy for anything to be created in the universe, whether that's a human, whether that's a universe. So there's this macro micro correlation that is summed up in the alchemical saying that as it is above, so is it below. And as it is below, so is it above. And as it is outside, so is it inside. And as it is inside, so is it outside. And that's this profound realization that the macrocosm is reflected in and as our microcosm, like a bead of dew reflects the whole night sky. That it's not just some interesting idea that the universe lives inside of you as well as all around you. It's experiential. And that's been my experience through the practice of meditation and yogic disciplines. And my understanding of yoga is that it's a step-by-step scientific process of self-realization and actualizing human potential and purifying our nervous system and our endocrine system and our emotional system and our energy system so that we can tune our body to have a direct experience of oneness with God, with the universe. There's nothing like it. And highly recommend it. And it's inside of everybody. Because it can't not be, because it's omnipresent, that it's inside of every atom, every particle, every cell, every strand of DNA, every bit of our being. And so that's the journey of self-discovery. There is an infinite treasure nearer than our nose, closer than our breath, in our hearts, in everybody. That said, if we don't put in the effort to discover it and to honor that sacred link that our birth into this world is a symbol of, that we are a child of the universe, a child of God, whatever word you want to use for your connection to your existence. We can't not feel that you are alive. It's incredible. So without getting into a long rant about that, this is the deepest spiritual wisdom and teachings that has for many centuries been hidden. And that's what esoteric means, that which is hidden or kind of unseen, exoskeleton, like an ant skeletons on the outside. We have an exoskeleton as a human. It's hidden within. So there's this hidden dimension of life that now, because of the internet and just where we are as a species, these teachings are literally at anybody's fingertips, and it's incredible. So, for example, the symbol of union, of polarity within us, of finding, and as sex species, we look for that mate outside of us through biological desire in part, and through the evolutionary process of mirroring and reflecting. That part of relationship is helping us see ourselves like in a mirror. So all that being said, there's so much to share on this. I'm trying to be selective because to not make it an hour, 2 hour long conversation. That said, if you look at the staff of Hermes, you say, what's that? Well, you've probably seen it at a doctor's office. There's this pole or staff with kind of with two serpents climbing up it to this kind of sphere of light with, it's often winged at the top. This is a symbol of Hieros Gamos. This is a symbol of this internal union. That's what yoga means also, is this union of polarity within us. So we could say of male and female and genderify it, when really it's actually about polarity. In the Taoist system, the void, the formless, is actually considered the yin, the feminine. And this dynamic creative principle of expression is the yang, or the masculine within it. In the Indian systems, it's actually the reverse. The void, the unmanifest, is Shiva, the absolute, the divine masculine, looking with total kind of equanimity upon the universe, and the Shakti, this creative feminine principle, giving birth to all form, dancing within this space. So it's, you see, it's arbitrary, that it doesn't really matter which way we look at it. The key is that we're actually experiencing it all the time as silence. All these words that we're saying are coming and going like notes in a song within this field of silence. Mm. That all this activity and movement that we experience at the time is happening within a field of stillness. And all of these forms and phenomena are coming and going within a field of space. So it takes these dynamic principles. You need both space and form, and silence and sound, that this is this dynamic dance of the divine masculine and divine feminine in the macrocosm that makes the universe possible, as well as in our microcosm that allows everything to be possible. We have a left and a right brain, that every human being has masculine and feminine energy inside of them. So that's what this Hieros Gamos symbolizes in the staff of Hermes, which is the symbol of healing and of medicine. That's why doctors have it, that healing comes from the root word wholeness, and holiness, like holy, finding our divinity, realizing our wholeness within ourselves. And the more whole we are, and the more we realize our divinity, the more we heal. So that is the symbol, in short, of the deep esoteric significance of this. And there's an image I can just share for brief reference here that I found on Google Images, if that would be helpful.
Great, let's do it. Okay, cool. And as you're sharing that, I get how this is the perfect symbol for self-marriage, that we get to unite the different parts of ourselves in order to bring healing, not like healing at the doctor's office, but the deep internal healing that you're talking about.
Yes. Yes, and that's also where holistic healing comes from. And Western medicine and modern medicine has so much value. And this is this both and philosophy too, of the East meets West and science meets spirit, that's again a symbol of this union of that it's not polar, it's not competitive, it's not who's right and who's wrong. It's how are both complementing each other. So that's also a huge kind of metaphor for harmony in relationship. And that also, when we find that within, we can also better support it as we interact with our partner, with our friends, with the world. So you can see the screen?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Excellent. So this is a symbol of this kind of balance. And if you look closely, I mean, there's a lot we could unpack here. There's even the tarot card of the Fool on the right, and Temperance on the left, and this Pegasus and this lion and this monkey holding the world. I mean, all these things this is why I love symbolism so much. A really great way to develop intuition is to study symbols and symbolism. And you see this kind of these two dragons climbing up these staffs on either side, with the sun on the right and the moon on the left, and then these dragons kind of blending together and at the sacral and root chakras, at the sex organs, and this kind of double winged, this symbol of both union and individuality. And that's a huge importance in relationship and healthy relationships, is that we have our sovereignty and our individuality, and we're connected, and we're united, and we're relational. So there's a lot we can unpack. I'm just going to share this very briefly. And in the middle, you see the staff of Hermes, or the caduceus that we were describing. And these two serpents pointed upward. The serpent is a dual symbol of both ignorance and wisdom, and just basically of power. Kind of, we have feminine and masculine power, and any power can be used to harm or to heal, so to speak. So the serpent's pointed upward is a symbol of directing our attention inward and upward toward our soul, our higher self, to the divine within. A symbol pointed down, or a serpent pointed downward, is a symbol of kind of materialism and ignorance, and looking outside of ourselves for fulfillment. So then there's a symbol too here, where you see the man is standing on his left foot, and the woman is standing on her right foot. Isn't that interesting? So the right side of the body traditionally is the masculine side, which then links up with the left brain, switches at the hemispheres of the brain, and the right brain correlates to the left side of the body. So by the masculine embracing his feminine power and wisdom, he finds wholeness and empowerment. And by the woman embracing her masculine power and wisdom, that she's finding that kind of solid ground to stand on. And then if you look at the way that they're holding the staff, it's also the symbol of the yin and the yang, that he's firmly holding it with his fist, and she's very gently holding it. So we all have this capacity to be expressive and receptive, to be gentle, to be firm. And our development and empowerment as a human comes in our capacity to learn how to master and wield both, and in harmony. So this is just one example of this, and so we'll leave it at that for now.
You mentioned earlier, you had a comment around intuition, and I really believe that self-marriage is an exercise in tapping into your intuition. So whether it's feeling into what ring you most want, or who you really want to invite to your wedding versus who you should invite to your wedding, or even what you say during your vows, like whether it's that intuitive blurting that maybe you did at your wedding, or something that you're writing down and you feel like, ooh, I really need to say this to myself. I think that every step of the way, there's an opportunity to really listen to our gut. Does that resonate for you? And did you experience anything similar?
Absolutely. This is a huge topic again, so I'll try to be concise. Learning how to listen to our innermost truth, sometimes called the voice of the silence, the voice of the soul, to listen to your heart, to follow your heart. These are all sayings of what it means to live from our deepest love, courage, and wisdom, and intuition. And a big part of that is facing and overcoming our fears and inhibitions, and being willing to be spontaneous, and to learn to not care what other people think, to not try to censor and edit ourselves as much as to be true to ourselves. And a huge part of that is surrender and faith in the fundamental goodness of your heart, that when we're in our heart, spontaneous right action unfolds. Our heart does not wish harm on anyone. And there's a big difference between harming someone and disappointing somebody's ego, or having some part of their personality temporarily upset with us for not inviting us, or for not doing what they expect us to do, so on and so forth. And so we're all learning how to walk this balancing act, this tightrope, razor's edge of balance in relationship with other people and society and the expectations of the world, and to be true to ourselves. And so definitely a big fan of encouraging people to honor their heart, their soul, their intuition.
What advice would you give to someone who perhaps is planning a self-marriage, and they're trying to listen to their intuition, but they're getting trapped in the voice of the shoulds?
Go for it. Do it. Feel the fear and do it anyway.
But if they can't feel their intuition.
Totally. Fake it till you make it. Anything, baby steps. You know what you need to do, just do it. And so that's the whole thing. It's like little bit by little bit, then it leverages. It just naturally starts to unfold. It's like driving a car on the road. If you know the next 200 feet are going to be there, you just trust.
Yeah.
And so there's lots of tools and techniques available in the world. And part of it is creating a system of support. It is education, informing yourself. Our mind is like a closed system, and our brain, if we don't put new perspectives in it, it's very difficult to break out of the habituated limitations. Also, the power of association. Sometimes for periods of time in our life, we've got to kind of insulate ourselves, knowing that it's a natural process. It's a temporary phase, kind of like the butterfly going into the chrysalis, or the caterpillar going into the chrysalis to become the butterfly, that there's a period of time when we're changing and transforming ourselves, that it may require us to change our environment in a way that supports and nourishes these internal transformations until they stabilize, and to just have the courage to know that it's a natural process to go through the metamorphosis. It feels like you're melting into caterpillar soup, and you're neither caterpillar nor butterfly yet. It's totally good. So have faith, have trust in the goodness and natural, innate healing power and wisdom of your own intelligence, of your own wisdom, and to know this, that the universe is just as much as inside of you as everybody else. That when all things are equally and infinitely great, what ego can there be? It's not a race. It's not a competition. It's not in some people more than you. To honor that power within you and to water those seeds and to blossom them to full fruition, and to realize it's the divine pedigree and heritage of all of us. So nobody's special. Everybody's unique, and you have the power within you. All you got to do is honor it and be bold. Fortune favors the bold.
Thank you so much, Logan, for speaking with us today and sharing so much about your philosophy and your self marriage.
So welcome. Such an honor to have this opportunity. Thank you very much.